This is Daily Armenia, CivilNet's daily news digest. Here's what's making headlines in Armenia today. Armenia needs to announce a nationwide referendum on whether the country should remain in the Russian-led Eurasian Economic Union or seek membership in the European Union, a senior Russian diplomat said today. Though Russian officials, including President Vladimir Putin, have called for such a referendum multiple times since May, Moscow has for the first time set a deadline for its announcement, which is December this year. Obviously, if the call for a referendum is left unheard, the leaders of the Eurasian Economic Union's member states will explore further steps. Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Galuzin told Russian state news agency TASS announcing the deadline. The push for a referendum was initiated by Putin in May, in a speech that included implicit threats of war, as the Russian president said Armenia's growing ties with the EU reminded him of Ukraine's pivot towards the bloc in 2013, which was followed by Russian aggression against the country. Holding a referendum, Putin said, would allow Russia and Armenia to, in his words, divorce peacefully. Armenian officials have rejected such language. Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has consistently argued that although such a referendum will be held, the time is not yet right, as Armenia has not so far applied for EU membership. We understand that simultaneous membership in the Eurasian Economic Union and the European Union is impossible, Pashinyan said last week at a Eurasian Union summit in Kyrgyzstan. But holding a referendum now would mean that we expect the citizens of Armenia to choose between two options, one of which does not exist. It would be disrespectful to our people, he explained. Armenia joined the Russian-led Eurasian Economic Union in 2014 under the previous administration without holding a referendum. Last year, it adopted non-binding legislation declaring its aspiration to join the EU sometime in the future. However, negotiations on potential membership have not started, as Armenia has yet to submit a formal bid for membership. Russia's potential raise in the price of natural gas it sells to Armenia may prompt Yerevan to consider using a planned gas pipeline along the so-called Trump route to diversify its fuel mix, a ruling party lawmaker said today. A gas pipeline will pass through Armenia as part of TRIP. This may be another opportunity for us to consider having another source and using the opportunities of that gas pipeline, Sargis Kandanyan said at a press briefing today. The Trump route, announced a year ago, is a planned transport link expected to connect mainland Azerbaijan with its Nakhchivan exclave through Armenia's Syunik province. The United States, which brokered the deal, will have an economic presence in the area, which is expected to serve as a deterrent to potential Azerbaijani aggression against Armenia, while Yerevan will retain full control over all territory and borders in Syunik. The route is expected to include a railway, which is the priority, as well as a highway and, in the longer term, a gas pipeline. This could allow Armenia to source gas from Azerbaijan in exchange for transit rights. However, implementation appears to be years away, and Azerbaijani gas is unlikely to cover a significant share of Armenia's energy mix. Since last November, Armenia has also sourced some gasoline from Azerbaijan by railway, with the fuel transiting through Georgia. However, this has so far accounted for less than 10% of Armenia's gasoline supplies, which are relatively limited as cars in the country mostly run on liquefied petroleum gas or electricity. Armenia currently sources approximately 85% of its natural gas needs from Russia through Georgian territory, while the remaining 15% comes from Iran. Natural gas is crucial to Armenia's economy, serving as one of the country's three major sources of electricity, as well as fuel for water and home heating and cooking. Russian President Vladimir Putin first said that Russia could raise the price of gas sold to Armenia during his meeting with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan in April, directly linking the potential increase to Armenia's growing ties with the European Union. Putin said Armenia currently benefits from discounted gas priced at $177 per 1,000 cubic meters, compared with roughly $600 that Russia's energy giant Gazprom charges European countries for the same amount. Gazprom supplies gas to Armenia and also controls the country's gas sector through its subsidiary, which owns and operates the national distribution infrastructure. As a result, the $177 figure reflects the internal price at which gas is sold to Gazprom's own monopoly subsidiary, known as the price at the border. It does not include taxes, operating costs, salaries, infrastructure expenses, or Gazprom's markup. The final price paid by households is significantly higher, exceeding $390 per 1,000 cubic meters, more than double the figure cited by Putin. Armenia's new constitution will not reference the country's declaration of independence, which Azerbaijan considers an obstacle to signing a peace treaty, a ruling party lawmaker said in parliament today. Arusiak Julhakyan of the Civil Contract Party also said the draft constitution will be finalized and made public by the end of the year, though the government's previous pledge was to release it in March. Last August, Armenia and Azerbaijan signed a peace declaration in Washington and initialed a peace agreement aimed at ending more than 35 years of conflict between the two countries. Initialing means that the two sides agreed on the full text of the deal and confirmed that it would not be amended, but so far did not make it legally binding. Baku says it will not sign the final treaty unless Armenia removes the reference to its declaration of independence from the constitution. Azerbaijan does not dispute Armenia's independence itself, but objects to the declaration's reference to Nagorno-Karabakh, which it considers a legal territorial claim. Armenian officials have rejected Baku's demands, arguing that constitutional changes are an internal matter for Armenia. At the same time, the government has pushed for a new constitution, arguing that the existing document, adopted under previous administrations, lacks public legitimacy. Following June's parliamentary election, however, constitutional reform appears to be in limbo, as the ruling Civil Contract Party won only 64 of the parliament's 105 seats, falling short of the two-thirds supermajority required to initiate a nationwide constitutional referendum. Days after the election, Justice Minister Serbuhi Galyan said there could be a workaround, but did not specify the procedure. And as always, please follow CivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.